It's the benefit of this country that we have a better Speaker of the House than Kevin McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy couldn't keep his word. He made an agreement in January regarding the way Washington would work, and he violated that agreement. We are $33 trillion in debt. We are facing $2.2 trillion annual deficits. We face a de-dollarization globally that will crush Americans, working class Americans. Kevin McCarthy is a feature of the swamp. He has risen to power by collecting special interest money and redistributing that money in exchange for favors. We are breaking the fever now, and we should elect a speaker who's better. I take no lecture on asking patriotic Americans to weigh in and contribute to this fight from those who would grovel and bend knee for the lobbyists and special interests who own our leadership, who have, oh, boo all you want, who have hollowed out this town and have borrowed against the future of our future generations. I'll be happy to fund my political operation through the work of hardworking Americans, $10 and $20 and $30 at a time, and you all keep showing up at the lobbyist fundraisers and see how that goes for you. I reserve.
This is my video update from Budapest, Hungary on this Wednesday morning, October the 4th. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off with the big news, which is that the House Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, is House Speaker no more. He was voted out yesterday by a difference of around, I think, 8 votes, an 8-vote difference. And he has been fired. I guess that's the best way you could describe it. He's been voted out. He has been voted out as the Speaker of the House. Matt Gaetz, he called McCarthy's bluff. He took a chance. He took a huge risk. He said that McCarthy is not honoring his promises that he made when he was appointed Speaker of the House, and it's time for him to go. And sure enough, he is gone. Hakeem Jeffries, the leader of the Democrats, he put out a notice, a memo to all the Democrats in the House to vote to remove McCarthy. And all the Democrats, they fell in line and they voted to remove McCarthy. And then you had 8 Republicans, including Matt Gaetz, who voted to remove McCarthy. And that was the difference. You had what is called the Freedom Caucus, and some people in the Freedom Caucus decided to keep McCarthy, but Matt Gaetz got enough support to remove him, and there you have it. Big news. This is the first time in history, I believe, that a House Speaker has actually been removed, and he was on the job for 8 months, and he did not really do much in those 8 months. You still have the whole Hunter thing, the Biden scandal, the Professor Joe Biden scandal, the Hunter Biden scandal. You have that, which hasn't really progressed at all. They're just now on an impeachment inquiry. They haven't even gotten to an impeachment, like an actual impeachment trial. They haven't gotten to that yet. And then you have Ukraine. You have the business of Ukraine and the never-ending money that has been going to the Elensky regime. And no doubt about it, McCarthy, he lost his job because of Ukraine. And Matt Gaetz, he said it pretty plainly. He told the media, look, the resolution, the stopgap resolution that was passed a couple of days ago, that had no money for Ukraine, but McCarthy, he made a deal with Biden on the side to get some money, to get the money to Ukraine, and that's what set Matt Gaetz off. Matt Gaetz said that's enough. We're $33 trillion in debt. It's actually a whole lot more than $33 trillion when you add everything up. But Matt Gaetz said we're $33 trillion in debt. The U.S. is losing its place on the international stage. Countries are de-dollarizing. BRICS is rising. BRICS has all the momentum. China and Russia are in a de facto alliance, pretty much, and the U.S. is spending continues to spend more on the conflict in Ukraine, which is a conflict that has been lost, that cannot be won and has been lost. And Matt Gaetz, he pretty much said it plainly, simply, that this can't go on anymore. The U.S. does not have the money to fund Ukraine, and it has to stop printing the money to fund Ukraine, to give money to the Elensky regime for a conflict that the Elensky regime has lost. And that is why McCarthy lost his job. So I guess you could say that McCarthy has fallen victim to the Elensky curse with some help from Matt Gaetz. Whether you like Matt Gaetz or whether you hate Matt Gaetz, or if you don't know much about him, I'm kind of in the middle. I don't know much about him, but I have to admit, that was a power move. That took a lot of cojones, a whole lot of cojones to do what Matt Gaetz did. And in principle, I have to agree with him. In principle, he is spot on, absolutely spot on. 33 trillion is hard to even. You can't even like imagine it. I can't put it into any context to be 33 trillion in debt, and it's a lot more than that. I mean, this is empire collapse. It's empire collapse that we're seeing right now in the United States and in the collective West, and it has to stop. It has to stop. And I think Matt Gaetz said that the fever has to break, and that's what's happened. I think this is a good thing, and McCarthy said he's not going to put his name in the hat to be House Speaker again. He has the right to do it. He said he's out, and so the Republicans are looking for another House Speaker. Some names are floating around. Trump is one of them. Someone already nominated Trump. Steve Scalise is a name that is floating around. Jim Jordan would be a great House Speaker, but he said that he's not interested in the position. But there you have it, a historic day in the U.S., and all of this is because of Project Ukraine. The big counteroffensive has failed. Ukraine is not winning this conflict. Ukraine lost this conflict when the economic war failed, like 9, 10, 12 months ago. The collective West, they launched an unprecedented economic war against Russia. The goal was to sink the Russian economy. Sink the Russian economy, make the people of Russia suffer. That would lead to the people of Russia getting out into the streets, which would lead to some sort of a regime change in the Kremlin. That was the plan. And they lost. It failed. They didn't sink the Russian economy. The Russian economy is actually stronger and better than ever. They have BRICS now. They have China with them. It didn't work. They have 80% of the world is with Russia. It completely backfired, and the sanctions actually backfired, and they're hurting the collective West more than they're hurting Russia. And that was the big gamble that the collective West took in this conflict over Ukraine, over Project Ukraine. They took the gamble, and they said, you know what? Give us 3 months. We'll sink the Russian economy. Then we'll get into Russia. We'll grab all their resources on the cheap. We'll balkanize Russia as well. We'll split it up into 7, 8 different pieces, and all will be good. That was their thinking. And it completely failed, completely, utterly collapsed. What a catastrophe for the collective West. And good on Matt Gaetz. Good on Matt Gaetz. He understands this. He sees that this is going nowhere, and he's like, we got to get off this Ukraine sinking ship. And he's right. The U.S. has to get off the Ukraine sinking ship, because if they don't get off of it, it's going to pull the U.S. down with it. So we will see now what happens. We'll see if anything changes. We'll see if a new speaker actually starts to pursue Professor Biden, if he starts to pursue Hunter and Burisma and all of that stuff. We'll see if they actually do put a stop to funding for Ukraine, and they start to show some fiscal responsibility. Stop the printing, stop the spending. It's not going to be easy. It's actually going to be very, very tough, but it has to happen. It has to happen. Even if you're a fan of Elensky, even if like you have Elensky posters in your room with his green outfits, and you're like an uber fan of Elensky. If you're in the United States, you can't afford Elensky. You can't afford him anymore. It's just that simple. You don't have the money for Elensky, and you can't keep on printing. You can't keep on borrowing. It's over. The U.S. will find some money. They'll continue to find some billions here, some billions there. But this is huge. This is absolutely huge. You know, the Elensky regime, if they had any brains, they would take a look at what's happening in the U.S. and they would say it's time to call up Putin. It's time to capitulate. If they had any brains, if they had any compassion, if they had compassion for their own soldiers, for their own men, for their own people, then they would take a look at what happened in the House yesterday and they would say it's over. We need to call Putin and we need to save whatever country we have left. The EU, the same. If the EU had any compassion for EU citizens, if it had any compassion for the citizens of Ukraine, they would tell Elensky, call Putin and beg for forgiveness, capitulate. They're not going to do that, though. We know they're not going to do that. What they're going to do is they're going to continue to escalate as best they can. That's exactly what they're going to do, and that is what the European Union has signaled that it's going to do. We have the saga that is going on between the EU and Hungary. And I talked about this in my video yesterday. The Orban government, they have been blocking aid to Ukraine. From what I understand, reading Zero Hedge yesterday, the EU wants to give 50 billion to the Elensky regime. I was thinking like 20 billion. 50 billion is what they want to give it. And they're desperate to give that money to the Elensky regime. That's what they have in the EU budget. But Hungary is standing in the way because in order to allocate this 50 billion in the budget, it needs the approval of all 27 EU member states. And Orban is saying no. He is not going to approve it. I wonder what Slovakia is going to say to this 50 billion to the Elensky regime. Keep in mind that Slovakia, unlike Hungary, is on the euro. They actually use the euro currency, so that's trouble for Slovakia, because I can tell you firsthand, coming from Greece and Cyprus, that if the EU wants to weaponize the euro in order to get you to do things, they will weaponize the euro. So Slovakia is in a weaker position, but Hungary, they're not using the euro, so they're pretty much free to tell the European Union, no, we're not going to approve the 50 billion. Now, what the EU does have over Hungary is they have this 21 billion of funds that belong to Hungary that the EU is withholding. Keep in mind, this is Hungary's money. Hungary has been owed this money for like the past 3-4 years, and the EU is deliberately holding it back in order to try and punish the government of Viktor Orban. That is why they are holding this money back. So, as I said in my video yesterday, we have an interesting scenario where the EU is absolutely desperate, especially given what they saw happen in the US House yesterday. They're absolutely desperate to keep Project Ukraine going. And in order to keep Project Ukraine going, they need to get 50 billion, they want to get 50 billion into the hands of the Elensky regime. But Hungary is standing in the way, and Orban is like, well, you guys owe me 21 billion. I'm waiting for the 21 billion. Where is it? And so now we are getting more and more media outlets saying that Brussels is ready to give Orban 13 billion of that 22 billion that is owed to Hungary. And in exchange for the 13 billion that they're going to give to Orban, they want Orban's yes vote on the Elensky Ukraine budget. That's the deal that they are making to Orban. Here is what Zero Hedge says. The European Commission is preparing to unfreeze around 13 billion in funds for Hungary to try to avoid Prime Minister Viktor Orban vetoing EU aid for Ukraine in a move likely to draw criticism from the European Parliament. Politico reports on Tuesday the Commission needs the unanimous backing of the bloc's 27 countries for an update to the EU's long-term budget, which includes a 50 billion funding pot for Ukraine. EU aid for Kiev, which was previously approved, runs out in December, hence the urgency for EU leadership in wanting to push through a new package. Let me read you a tweet here from Tom Luongo, connected to this story. First, they steal your money. Then they offer it back to you in exchange for more of what they stole your money for in the first place. Just say no, Mr. Orban. That is a brilliant tweet from Tom. An absolutely brilliant tweet from Tom. He sums it up perfectly. This is your money that they stole from you, Hungary. They stole this money from you. They're withholding it. And now they're saying, in order to get half of this money, a little more than half of this money, we're going to put some terms on the table. And those terms are you have to vote yes for 50 billion to the Elensky regime. They're making demands. They're making demands of Hungary to give money that is owed to Hungary that they stole from Hungary, and they're making demands in order to return this money that they stole. These guys, yeah, these guys, they really are pirates. Ursula von der Pirate, Pirate Schultz. They're worse than pirates. I think pirates at least had some honor. Didn't pirates at least live by a code? I mean, these people, man, these people. Wow. So yeah, I think, I think Orban, this is what Orban should tell them. This is my opinion. This is what I would do. I would say, you know what? I don't want 13 billion. I want all of it. I want all the money that is owed to me. And I want it tomorrow. And I want it with interest. You've been holding it for 3-4 years. I want the money plus the interest. And then, when the money is in my bank account, I'll consider voting yes. But I'll consider it. And I reserve the right to vote no. That's what I would, those would be my terms. They've given me their terms. Those would be my terms. That would be my counter offer. And if you disagree, then we're going to definitely vote no. Because the 50 billion that they're giving to Ukraine in the budget is just going to come out of the coffers of EU member states. So the 13 billion that they give to Hungary, most of it's just going to leave again to go to Elensky. These guys, man. These guys. Stand strong, Hungary. Stand strong, man. Tell the EU to buzz off. Give them your terms. Give them your terms. We don't want 13 billion. I want all 22 billion with interest. That would be my counter offer. And I want that money delivered to me by Ursula and Borrell. I want them to deliver that money to me in person. I want them to come to Budapest, come to my office, and deliver that money to me in person. That would be my request. Oh, man. So, yeah, the Elensky regime, they actually came out with a statement saying that if they don't get money by December, the government's shutting down. I think they said December or November. Actually, I think they said November. That's what the Wall Street Journal is reporting. They need the money from the US. They need the money from Europe by November. If they don't get that money, they can't pay salaries. They can't pay the salaries of first responders. They can't pay the salaries of the people in parliament. They can't pay Elensky's salary. They can't pay Podoliak's salary. That's it. Because for the last couple of years, it's been the United States and the EU that has been paying all of Ukraine's salaries, all of Ukraine's needs. Ukraine is not the 51st state. It's much more dependent on the U.S. than any state in the United States. I mean, the federal government, they pay everything for Ukraine, everything. So they got until November. They'll get some money. They'll get money. For this, I have no doubts. But you can't conduct a conflict like this and expect to win. It's that simple. It is over. The best thing for Elensky to do, if anyone in the collective West, even if you hate Putin, even if you despise Putin, I mean, you despise him. You think he's the second coming of the mustache man. You think he's the worst person in all of history. You hate Russians. You despise Russians. You're racist and bigoted towards Russia. And even if you have those beliefs, right, and they're deep, they're internalized, you still have to come to the same conclusion that it's over. You lost. It's that simple. So, yeah, that is the situation. And let's talk not about money, funding for Ukraine. Let's talk about weapons now, because not only is it going really, really bad on the financial side, it's also going bad on the military aid side of the equation. So right now I am on Margaret's Island here in Budapest. And it is amazing. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. Look at this. So we're exploring the island together. And we're talking news, and let's talk about the military side of things. We have now reports from the collective West mainstream media, which are now saying that, wait for it, just wait for it, the West and the UK are running out of weapons. You heard that right. Russia running out of weapons? No. No, senor. The West and the UK are running out of weapons. Yep, that is what the Telegraph is reporting. That is what the BBC is reporting. Let me read you what the Telegraph and what the BBC said. This came out yesterday. Ukraine war. This is from the BBC. Ukraine war. Western allies running out of ammunition. Western military powers are running out of ammunition to give Ukraine to defend itself against Russia's full-scale invasion, the UK and NATO have warned. Admiral Rob Bauer, NATO's most senior military official, told the Warsaw Security Forum that the bottom of the barrel is now visible. He said governments and defense manufacturers now had to ramp up production in a much higher tempo. We need large volumes. The just-in-time, just enough economy we built together in 30 years in our liberal economies is fine for a lot of things, but not the armed forces when there is a war going on. And the Telegraph, they have a similar article with the title, Britain has run out of arms to send to Ukraine. We've given away all we can afford, and other countries should step in, says senior military chief. When they say other countries, you know who they're talking about, the United States. This is the problem with all of this. The House has just sent a strong signal that they don't want to fund Ukraine anymore. Now, they're going to find money to give to Ukraine. The Biden White House will find money. The Senate will find money. The Pentagon will find money. But it's over in the House. The momentum is now clearly against funding Ukraine. Matt Gaetz did it. He did it. He turned the tide of this war. He changed history in a way. He really did. I mean, love Matt Gaetz, hate Matt Gaetz. You're in the middle about your feelings for Matt Gaetz or your opinion of him, but he did it. He took a huge risk and he changed things. And the UK and the EU, the BBC, the Telegraph, what they are saying, this admiral, this NATO admiral, this UK NATO admiral, what they are saying is Europe and the UK, we have no more weapons to give. We're tapped out. We've been demilitarized, at least as far as Ukraine is concerned. And someone else has to give weapons. Well, who's that someone going to be? Well, the United States, of course. Well, the House is saying, look, we don't want to pay for Ukraine forever. We don't want to give weapons to Ukraine forever. We don't have the money to give to Ukraine anymore. We're 33 trillion in debt, and then some and more. Probably triple, quadruple that when you put everything together. And for a year and a half, they were telling us that Russia is running out of weapons, right? Russia is running out of weapons. And now we get to the truth. Now we've got the truth of who's really running out of weapons. It's the collective West that has run out of weapons. And they want the U.S. They want the U.S. to take care of this. The U.S. Europe and the U.K., they're going to go to the United States and they're going to beg the U.S. to bail Ukraine out and to bail Europe out and the UK. Now, does America really want to do that? Because that's the truth of conflict Ukraine. Project Ukraine is not only about the US having to take care of Ukraine forever, it's about the US having to take care of Europe forever. I mean, Europe's bust, man. It's broke, it's bankrupt, it's bust. Europe is going to be a place for tourists to come and see and take a look around and take photos, and that's it. They've lost their number one provider of energy, resources, commodities. It's gone. It's gone. So Europe is going to need the U.S. to take care of it forever, like for at least for the next 20, 30, 40 years. Does the U.S. really want that? Do American people really want that? I don't think they do. I don't think they signed up for this. People thought this was going to be a 3-month thing. 3 months. Destroy the Russian economy, move into Russia, pillage Russia, take their resources, break Russia apart. All good. Game over. That's what they were selling everybody on. And it failed. Anyway, Russia is not running out of weapons. The collective West has run out of weapons, is running out of weapons, and the BBC and the Telegraph are now telling us as much. But you still have people like the foreign minister of Lithuania, the foreign minister of Lithuania, Mr. Gabrielis Landsbergis. He said on Tuesday, and I quote, Ukraine must become a NATO member. NATO's transatlantic security umbrella must also protect those countries that were left in the gray zone of geopolitics. This is what Landsbergis said at the Warsaw Security Conference. The minister went on to say that Kiev's backers in its conflict with Russia must do everything to keep Ukraine within its 1991 borders on this side. When we are saying that we will help Ukraine for as long as necessary, why can't we clearly state that we are seeking the victory of Ukraine? The victory of Ukraine must be a strategic goal for us all, Landsbergis argued. Well, the reason that NATO can't say victory for Ukraine at all costs is because NATO knows that if they were to get fully involved in Project Ukraine, to not have this be a proxy war, but to have this be a full-on war, NATO would lose. And when NATO loses, NATO collapses and it's game over. Stoltenberg knows this. Professor Biden knows this. They know this. That's why they can't make that commitment, Mr. Foreign Minister of Lithuania. And, you know, it's all well and good to say that you're just going to hand out Article 5 security assurances to Ukraine and any country that is left, what did he say, that's left in the gray zone of geopolitics. That's all fine to say that, but go ahead, do it. Back it up with your actions, my man. Back it up. Back it up, Mr. Foreign Minister of Lithuania, because you know you can't. Because there's not one other country, maybe with the exception of I don't know, other Baltic states and Poland, maybe those are the countries that will back this, but there's no other country in the European Union and NATO that's going to back this. Well, maybe Canada will back this. Trudeau, I can see Trudeau backing this. But they don't want to hand out Article 5 security assurances to anybody, to any country that's been left in the geopolitical gray zone, as you describe it. What, you're going to give Article 5 to Ukraine? Okay, give Article 5 to Ukraine. And then what? You think that's going to change Russia's objectives? You think that's going to throw Russia off course? No. No, Russia has said they are going to achieve their objectives that they put out during the start of the special military operation. And they're achieving those objectives. Denazification, demilitarization. Ukraine not into NATO. A new security architecture in Europe. Russia, step by step, it's going to take a while, but step by step, they're achieving their goals. They're demilitarizing not only Ukraine, all of NATO, but demilitarizing NATO takes you one step closer to a new security architecture in Europe. You see how that works? But yeah, hand Article 5 security assurances to Ukraine because they've been left in the gray zone of geopolitics, and then hand them out to who else? Give it to Moldova as well. Give it to Moldova as well. Why not? Since you're handing it out like candy. Hand it out to Armenia also. Hand it out to Georgia. Just start handing it out to all different kinds of countries. Here you go. Here's an Article 5 for you. Here's an Article 5 for you. This is just nonsense, man. It's nonsense. I'll tell you right now, if this ever had a chance of happening, of giving Article 5 guarantees to Ukraine, I'll tell you that Greece would never, I can't imagine Greece actually fighting against Russia under this "we'll give Article 5 protection to Ukraine" idea. I don't see that as ever happening. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Mitsotakis would actually go ahead and do it. God knows he's been making a lot of bonehead moves, but no way our country's going to sacrifice their soldiers, their men, their young men for this idea that the Lithuanian foreign minister has. He's just barking. He's just barking. Bark, 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 bark. That's it. That's it. He's trying to talk tough to the crowds at the Warsaw Security Conference. The big man on stage, Mr. Foreign Minister of Lithuania. He's trying to be the big tough guy. Oh boy. So let's see here. Do I have any more stories to get to, or should we get to a clown world? Actually, I do have one more story, and this is an interesting one. So, the Russian government, an investigative committee set up by Russia, they have now charged Ukraine commanders with terrorism, like official charges. And this is an interesting story because, to me, it indicates that Russia senses that they're on the path towards a complete outright victory, and for them to charge these guys means that they believe that they can get these guys, that they can nab these guys and deal with these guys for what they have done. And according to the Russian investigative committee, they have committed acts of terrorism against Russia. The Russian investigative committee has identified 4 senior Ukrainian military officials as the masterminds of over 100 terrorist attacks involving drones targeting civilian infrastructure. In a statement on Tuesday, the agency said it has collected enough evidence to charge the 4 commanders in absentia with terrorism-related crimes. Russia will seek the arrests of the suspects, it said. The committee named Ukrainian military intelligence chief Kirill Budanov, the commanders of the Air Force and the Navy, Nikolai Oleshchuk and Alexei Nezhaba, as well as commander of the 383rd Drone Regiment of the Air Force, Sergei Purdenyuk, as the culprits. Their alleged offenses took place between April 2022 and September 2023. Boy, oh boy, I am telling you, if I was Budanov, I would get to one of my villas in Miami, like ASAP. Budanov, you are going down, my man. You are going down. Russia's going to get you. That's all I have to say. Russia is going to get you. You are going to be in big trouble. Big trouble, my man. You better pack your bags, Budanov. You better pack your freaking bags and take your artificial intelligence AI self to one of the villas that I'm sure you've purchased over the past couple of years from all the corruption that has been taking place. By the way, the White House, they actually came out with a statement the other day after the Politico article that I was talking about in my video yesterday about the secret document that says Ukraine is really corrupt and it needs to fix the corruption. Well, the White House came out with a statement and they said that they've seen no corruption in Ukraine to date. They've seen no instances of corruption in connection with all the money that has been given to the Elensky regime. Well, there's no corruption if you're not auditing it. Of course not. If you can't track it and trace it, well, then there is no corruption. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. These guys. All right, let's wrap this video up with a clown world. And let's do a clown world. How about, well, we have this interesting story which claims that Nancy Pelosi was evicted from the Capitol after the resignation of House Speaker McCarthy. According to Politico, ex-Speaker Pelosi, according to the tradition established in Congress, continued to occupy the office given to her during her civil service. Immediately after McCarthy's resignation, Speaker Pro tempore Patrick McHenry sent Pelosi an email asking her to get out of the Capitol along with everything. Oh, if this is true, wow. Wow, wow, wow. We have the head of the European Council, Charles Michel. He said that Ukraine can join the European Union in 2030, provided that its homework is done. Oh boy. Under the modest terms, Michel said that Ukraine has to carry out reforms, fighting corruption, and fulfilling all EU requirements. We in the EU need to be clear about what we want to achieve together, what our priorities are, and what we want to spend money on. These guys. No reverse gear. They're still living in delusion land, in fantasy land. Fantasy Island. Right now I'm on Margaret Island. These guys are living on Fantasy Island. I'm kind of a bit upset, to be quite honest. I'm a bit disappointed because I was hoping that they would let Ukraine into the European Union like next month. That's what I was hoping for. Look at Margaret Island. And these are the bridges. Bridge there. And the other bridge there. And that's how you get on this island. You just cross over one of the bridges and they have a walkway down to the island. It's really easy, really convenient. So yeah, that's kind of a clown world. Whatever, 2030, whatever. Whatever you say, Mr. Michel. How about this statement from the Defense Minister of the Netherlands, Kassa Ollongren? Here's a tweet from Dagny Taggart. Minister of Defense of the Netherlands, Kassa Ollongren, quote, supporting Ukraine is a very cheap way to ensure that Russia and its regime did not pose a threat to the NATO alliance, she said at the forum in Warsaw. Do you hear Ukrainians? Quote, cheap way. Yeah. Are the people of Ukraine getting this? That the collective West is basically saying that in order to degrade Russia and deter China, you guys need to continue this fight? I mean, are people understanding how they're using you? It's time for Elensky to capitulate. Capitulate, man. Save your people. Save whatever country you have left. Save it. And the final clown world. From a lot of people were talking smack, talking nonsense at the Warsaw Security Conference. I wish I had a ticket to that. That would have been some good comedy to attend that security conference. Boy, a lot of people are talking a lot of nonsense there. So let's do a final clown world here. And this is coming from the Telegraph. And I actually tweeted this out. 1 second here. Let me go on to the tweet that I sent. From the Telegraph, it has to do with the Austrian Chancellor. The Austrian Chancellor said that a cheap way for kids to get food is to eat at McDonald's. So there should be no more discussion about rising prices or hunger or inflation or anything like that. The Austrian Chancellor said, let them eat Mickey D's. Here is what people in Hungary, you need to tell me you need to tell everybody what this says in the comments down below. Let us know. I don't know if you can read that. So this is what the Telegraph said. Austrian Chancellor says cheap McDonald's meals show food poverty doesn't affect his nation. Karl Nehammer embroiled in Burgergate controversy after leaked video showed him making comments on child hunger. Real nice, Chancellor of Austria. Real classy. This is what the Telegraph said. What does it mean? This is what the Chancellor of Austria said, according to the Telegraph. What does it mean? There are kids without hot meals in Austria. Do you know what the cheapest meal in Austria is? It's not healthy, but it's cheap. A hamburger at McDonald's is €1.40. If I buy fries with it, that's €3.50. Now, someone is seriously claiming that we live in a country where parents can't afford this meal for their child, Mr. Nehammer added. Boy, these guys, being ruled by the worst of people. The collective West is being ruled by the absolute worst of people. All right, everybody, that is the video from Budapest, Hungary, from Margaret Island. The Duran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and Twitter. And go to the Duran shop. Use the code Good Day. I am wearing my Duran t-shirt as I explore this area. I don't know what this is, though. People in Hungary need to help me out. Is there anybody here that can tell me where am I? Where am I? Let's do some exploring. That's the video, everybody. No more news. Follow me on Twitter. Take care. Stick with me if you want to see a little bit more.